Hey, what's up, nerds? It's Paul at Radio Free Hammer Hall. Uh, we've had a lot of news about Age of Sigmar 4th Edition coming out. And there's been some controversy, some ups and downs. And I thought I would just kind of dump some thoughts out there about the totality of the thing and people's responses to it. I had done a video. I recorded a video. It is sitting on my laptop that I did not upload. And it was basically just going through the history of all of the armies that have gotten cut in, like, since the end times, right? Everything that's gone away and kind of like the process of it. And I guess it was just a very long way of saying, like, not much of Warhammer Fantasy Battles is even left in Age of Sigmar at this point. Like, just quick rattle off what's happened. Bretonia, Tomb Kings, Chaos Dwarves all basically got nuked out of the gate. Over time, we've also basically gotten rid of Wood Elves, totally got rid of High Elves. Dwarves are down to like 4 kits. There's all now with the Bone Splitters going / Savage Orcs, if you're a Savage. With that going, the whole Orc half of the Orc and Goblin book is now gone. Geez, what else have we lost? Like, okay, now we're getting rid of Beastmen in its totality. There's really only like a couple of armies left that are even like really all that close to what they used to be, because everything has gotten either cut or they've had like a major model line rework, and some of them just kind of don't really work for if you're like going to square bases all that well. Although for the old world, I have to say those increased base sizes were a great idea, because at least from my experience so far, they actually really do make the newer Age of Sigmar sculpt equivalents to that actually fit when you rank them up. Like that extra 5 millimeters is like enough of a bump to get stuff to fit. Cool. So 4th edition. You know, first of all, I just want to wrap up thoughts on armies getting cut. I think really the underlying point is, when we look at Age of Sigmar, the history of it at this point, the way Games Workshop has been handling it, is old stuff getting either completely cut or the model line getting totally reworked. So if you look at anything over time in there, like, what armies are left? Ogres, Dark Elves, both of those basically untouched. Skaven was one, and now they're getting their total rework. And a lot of the goblins are still there from Warhammer Fantasy, although they've gotten an additional release with a whole bunch of new stuff as well. So I think, Doom and Darkness, Michael, just put out a video. The other day he put out a video about, throwing his Stormcast army in the bin, which I think was, my impression was a lot tongue-in-cheek. I enjoyed it. I thought it was funny. People are going to react to it the way they want. I'm not going to criticize people if they're upset about this. I'm not, like, be upset. Like, yeah, the thing you love is not going to be in the game you love anymore, and that kind of sucks. I think he made a great point, and I don't know if he even meant to make the point as well as he did, but basically, that it's making you reevaluate your purchases with Age of Sigmar. And I think that is 100%, regardless of who you are, whatever your take on this is. I think that's a great thing to do. Look at your purchases. What does this mean to you? Why are you buying it? What do you expect out of it? Right? Now, if say let's just use our buddy Doom and Darkness as an example, has, a $2,000 Australian Stormcast army. So out of those $2,000 dues, how much of that was enjoyment of painting that you got out of it? Some people don't enjoy painting. Okay, so painting is work. So maybe that increases the amount that you have to recoup. But maybe like half of the fun of this for you, like me, is just the painting. That I paint stuff that's never going to end up on the table. I collect things just because I like them. So, I mean, as my outrageous Nurgle army will show you from the last video that I did, sometimes I get it out of control. OCD is a bitch. Yeah, but we live, we manage. So I guess here's the question: if we take the hobby side out of it, right, and look at how many games did you play with that army, right? Divide the cost by the number of games. Dollars per game. Say you played, I don't know, pick a number, 100 games, because that's easy division, and I'm still working on waking up this morning, and I didn't sleep well. Anyway, so I'm a little fried. So $2,000, played 100 games with that army, so it was $20 a game. Like, that's pretty good. Would you rent that army for $20 a game? Maybe. There's another thing to actually also consider in this too. Games Workshop is going to tell you, and a lot of other people are going to tell you, go play Old World, go play Ninth Age, whatever other game system. Pick another game system and go play your models with that. Proxy them into AOS and do something else. Okay, here's the other thing. Even if you're not interested in that, right? If you're just strictly looking at this from the financial perspective and you're not interested in those other games, just put them on eBay. How much of your money can you recoup off of eBay? Kind of a lot. Like, even if it's, say you get like 40% back of what you originally put into it. Like, if you bought a $2,000 redo army, well, you're going to get like 800 back, right? If you're recouping 40% of your stuff on eBay. So, okay, now after you do that recoup, now you've only really spent $1,200 for 100 games. Now it's $12 a game. But I think all of this rambling is really just kind of getting to this point. I think you got to step back, look at it, and say, like, what's my actual cost that I put into this, net of selling stuff, net of my enjoyment of just collecting, and the enjoyment of playing, not playing, the enjoyment of painting everything and hobbying and all of that stuff. How much is the good time worth to you compared to what you spent? And, I think that's a more appropriate way to look at it, right? Like, don't think of it as like a sink. Like, oh, I spent all this money and now that money is thrown out the window. Now it is if you bought that whole army like last week, but it's not going to be if you've been playing it forever. And like, dear God, like, people saying, like, oh, I've had this army for 15 years, blah, blah, blah. You mean to tell me that you haven't gotten your money's worth in 15 years? Really? Really? So, and really, the other point to that as well is if you bought your army 15 years ago, for the past 15 years, you have not been a Games Workshop customer if you have not been buying other stuff. So that's another thing to consider. Like, Games Workshop is a company, corporation, publicly traded. They got to increase shareholder value. They're going to do what they need to do to make money, sell models. They have to cut stuff out of their line so that they can produce more stuff that sells better. I cannot imagine that Beasts of Chaos was selling well. Can't imagine Skaven was selling well. Apart from the fact that you probably need 1 million clan rats. And that's going to free up their factory space. It's going to free up their warehouse space. And they're going to be able to put out more stuff. And it's going to help resolve one of the issues that people also complain about with things being out of stock. If they're producing fewer models, their stock issues will be better. In theory, they should be better. The more obvious answer is, they could just build more factory space. But I mean, they can't just throw money away. And things take time and effort, and even though they have however many billions of dollars in market cap, and look at their profit. I mean, the real thing that you kind of have to look at is like their cash flow and their ability to borrow more money to actually, dive that back into a new investment of a new warehouse, a new production facility, and then you have to hire all the people to work there, yada, 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 right? And then you're also going to have more warehouse space to house all of this stuff, to have it in stock all the time. So barring that, also you can't just keep producing stuff that's not selling. You can't just, like, it's silly from a business perspective. It's completely asinine to produce things, pay for warehouse space, and have it go nowhere. Like, that is costing them money because it's sitting on the shelf, right? Anyway, enough about that particular ramble. Let's talk about 4th edition itself. All the rules that are coming out for it that were getting revealed. I think I'm going to go backwards a little bit. They've released what the new War Scrolls look like. I love it. It is basically in my opinion, it's just kind of a tweak from the old War Scrolls. They changed some things up. We have a control stat now instead of bravery. That tells you basically how many models it counts on the objective. You have your color-coded abilities that tell you when in the turn something happens. And also there's just words on the thing that tell you when the thing happens. And it's sorted out by, like, when it happens. It's pretty clearly indicated. I really like it. It's clean. It's simple. They're saying that everything's going to fit onto just one War Scroll card, which is great, because some of these War Scrolls have way, way too many rules. They're too complicated. Like, people that say, oh, Age of Sigmar is a simple game, I don't think they have actually sat down and looked at what these battle tomes look like. Because that's where all the complexity of this game really lives, is in the battle tomes. And I guess that's going back to the previous point. That's another issue, is that this game's got a lot of armies. And at some point, if something is old, adding complexity, it's not selling well, I mean, it makes sense to cut it. I mean, there's even more things that just make sense to cut. I'm kind of surprised Ogres didn't go. But, we'll see, I guess. We'll see what happens. Back to the actual rules issues. The elephant in the room, the whole priority roll thing. Um, we don't have the totality of it, but yeah, they're creating a pretty massive incentive to not ever double turn somebody. And so taking a double is only going to be either it's going to be like a desperate comeback, or it's going to be closing the door on a game and saying, I don't even need these points. I would rather just push you off the table. Now, for certain armies, if you have like an Alpha Strike army, then trying to get the double from like 1 to 2 is still devastating for them, right? Like if you're playing KO and you get a double from 1 to 2, you can shoot off most of your opponent's army before they ever take a second turn. And like it won't matter at all that you dropped whatever points on battle tactics. Keeping battle tactics, I just hope they do them better in this edition. Third edition battle tactics sucked. I think they need to rework the thinking on how those things operate, but that's sort of aside. That's its own video entirely on what I think they should do with battle tactics. Other rules changes, getting rid of melee weapon reach, and everybody just fights within 3 inches. Like that makes so much more sense. It's more clean. It's easier. It cuts down on complexity. Let's see. They got rid of Battle Shock and Bravery entirely. Love it. It was a stupid mechanic. It either meant everything or nothing. It was, it was just kind of dumb. They're keeping this turn basically the same. They're, what else did they say they're going to be doing? Adding, some universal special rules. They emphasized pretty hard that it's going to be a limited number of them, like a handful of them, which, I think that is like exactly right. The only thing that I would add is that I wish they would do the Magic the Gathering style reminder text along with it. So you have the keyword for once you learn the rule, but then you have underneath it, if you're less experienced, you have a little blurb telling you what that rule actually is. But, you have the universal rule that your brain can just shortcut as to what it does. But having a limited number means that it takes up a lot less brain space. So I think that's probably fine. And it is going to cut down a lot on the actual text that's on War Scrolls. Like the Liberator War Scroll that we saw, like they have a crit ability. Okay, great. Like, and everybody already did an ability like that, right? They said it's like 6s to hit, do mortal wounds. Like that's a ubiquitous ability throughout the game. Like that needed to just be keyworded. Cuts down on a lot of text. So I like it. I think there's pretty much nothing that I've seen out of rules for the new edition that I look at and say, this is a bad idea. Like, I don't like this. I think my only small caveat that I would put on it is I don't know how much this change to the priority roll is actually going to impact the power of the priority roll. As I think the main power of the priority roll isn't in scoring points in a turn so much as positioning yourself so that you get all of the points later in the game anyway. It's like, using the current third edition system, like you don't care about the 2 points that you get from the battle tactic that turn. You care that now you have all this board position and you killed a lot of your opponent's stuff because you got to go twice in a row. I think that's the really important and valuable thing to begin with. I think it is going to add more tactical depth to it, and I do like the perspective that they had. What Matt Rose said is like one of the core concepts of Age of Sigmar is making tactical decisions in the face of uncertainty. That is an interesting core concept sort of take on Age of Sigmar. I like it. Like, that gives the game an identity. Like, that really is, like, that's the response to, like, oh, the double turn's dumb. Like, no. Like, the game is about making decisions in the face of uncertainty. And you have to plan ahead. You have to try and know what you don't know. And I like it. Like, it's just, I think that encapsulates really well what the priority roll actually mechanically does in the game in, like, a sentence. What else did we have? Shit, my brain's blank. Modular rules, great idea. The thing that I'm going to say, I don't know if I've actually done a video on it before, but I've thought about doing a video on it before many times. Age of Sigmar rules were already modular, guys. They just did not explicitly say they were modular. This thing was modular from the first General's Handbook when they said 3 ways to play. Like, yes, those are 3 different modules that you put on to the core rules to play the game. There are a whole bunch of other chunks of rules that you can just pull out of the game, and the game is the same, like terrain rules. How many people don't even really use them? It doesn't significantly change the game. It is still at its core the same game. It is just this other thing on top of it. You don't have to have, you can just play like kill points if you want. You don't need a battle plan. You can have narrative battle plans. You can have, the match play battle plans that are stand over there on an imaginary point and score points. Other thing that they did mention that this is reminding me of is that the objectives are going to be smaller now, which I think is also a really good thing because those giant pie plate objectives kind of suck. And, just from the immersion experience sort of perspective, having these big 12-inch diameter discs all over your table, like, they take up a large percentage of the total table when people use them. And they're really good and convenient and easy, but like all you're seeing is big circles. Like, it ceases to be an immersive battle mat experience, right? It's cutting out a little bit of that suspension of disbelief, so to speak. But I guess I'll wrap here. I'm like on my way to an RTT today that I wasn't really planning on going to, but I ended up having the time today to do it, and family's out of the house, so it's just me, and I have no real opportunity cost to going to do it. And it's, my buddy's birthday, and we're going to go have a good time. Even though I have to drive like 2 hours to get there. And I'm just taking this opportunity to play like the dumbest list that I possibly can, because the edition's almost over. And, so I guess I want to get the dumb stuff in that I've always wanted to play around with just before we get a new edition, until that, maybe that dumb stuff doesn't really exist anymore. So yeah, like just for a preview of the list, it is 3 Beasts of Nurgle, and then 18 Nurglings, Morbidex, Horticulus Slimux, a Great Unclean One with Nurgling Infestation, and a Sloppity Bilepiper. So we're going to be doing everything we can to buff up our Nurglings and our Beasts of Nurgle and being dumb. And with Morbidex bringing Nurglings back, it just makes them the most absurd tar pit you have ever seen. I can't wait to actually do that mathematically. It's an insane tar pit. My experience with Nurglings in general is like, I've never put a unit of 6 on the table, but like the number of times I've had a unit of 3 just do yeoman's work to make the whole thing go. It's been great. It's fun. I also am not bringing, just to kind of keep myself honest to like the fun and theme of this, I'm not all I'm bringing to summon is like another Sloppity Bile Piper and um, more Beasts of Nurgle. I like the 18 is all I own. Not that that's not a lot of Nurglings. Actually, technically, I do have another squad of 3 that's just on sprue that I haven't put together and painted yet. But for summoning, right, like it's Beast of Nurgle and Sloppity Bile Piper is basically it. And I'm going to be kind of going hard into summoning too because I've got Horticulus, Befouling Host. So I'm going to get like probably 7 Contagion on the first turn. Nurglings drop into their backfield, so I'll get 10 a turn after that, which is more than a Beast of Nurgle every turn. Actually, no, it is a Beast of Nurgle every turn. Or more Nurglings, which will really be hilarious when they start getting pulled off the board, and yeah, then things happen. Yeah, so that's gonna be it. I've been rambling for almost a half hour now. Yeah, it's gonna be it. I'll talk to you all later. It's been fun. Chin up. Try and look at things from a logical and positive perspective. I know stuff sucks. It's okay to be mad. It's okay to be upset. But the important thing is, after you feel the feels, take a step back and get some perspective and move forward. It's happened to me before, twice. My Cities of Sigmar did it to me twice because at launch I had added a ton of Bretonnian stuff, and then that completely went out of match play. And now all my Cities of Sigmar Empire stuff basically went in the trash. And I'm kind of trying to proxy that into Cities of Sigmar, but I don't know how well that's actually going to end up working. And I still have a ton of models that really don't have a home in that army. Anyway, I am rambling. I have said like 3 times that I'm ending the video, so I'm now really going to end the video. My final thought, though, is with all of the salt out there right now about Beasts of Chaos coming out of Age of Sigmar, one of you people out there needs to do us all a favor and put out a video of that army getting burned on the YouTubes for us all to enjoy, just like we had 9 years ago. See you all later.